This episode hurt my feelings. It was
Oh
so
my
bad.
gosh. I'm fascinated.
It
I
was
thought it
so
was
bad.
excellent.
Really? Okay. Well, I'm really happy that I'll get to hear your points. Maybe you'll make me feel better about it.
Oh my goch, I'm so fascinated. I really want to hear that.
I made rage notes, Michelle.
Listen, I twerked at the TV last night, so we had different reactions.
Really different reactions. Hey everyone, welcome back to Decoding Dragons CouchSoup's Watching Now podcast, where we break down all things House the Dragon. We're your hosts, Liza and Michelle, spilling the royalty and breaking down the fire for every episode.
Yep, I have read A Song of Ice and Fire series and binged the show multiple times. Liza has seen the show and read Fire and Blood, so when it comes to thrones and dragon lore, we got you. So if you were here with us last season, welcome back. We're back for season 2. If you're a newcomer, we're talking about House the Dragon, the big players in the dance, and of course, the dragons. So let's jump into what happened in season 2, episode 2, called I Love You, Brother. Sounds like I'm talking to my sons. I love you, brother.
I love you, brother. First off, our customary and obligatory spoiler warning.
Yeah.
We are talking about what happened in episode 2. So if you haven't seen it, come back after you have. Later on in the episode, we're going to be talking about predictions for episode 3. But most importantly, in Decoding Dragons, we talk about the canon that the show is based off of. So you are likely to come across some sort of spoilers at some time. But if you're like us and you like to know everything about it, you're in the right place. So
I just want to show everybody that you have Post-it notes.
I made actual notes.
You have notes. We have things to talk about.
I sat down. I labeled them too. I've got Daemon ones. I have Blood and Cheese ones. I have one called Vengeance, and I have one called Harrenhal.
Okay, I'm really interested to hear about the Daemon one because I was a little disappointed in his character this season or this episode. It was a little boring. I know.
Okay. I have made a list of things that I do want to talk about, but I'm saving it for our Dragon Dream section where I'm going to do a mini canon correction bit where it's this is what actually happened or what I assume actually happened, because Fire and Blood is written as a historical tome from 3 separate people's points of view who weren't always in the same place at the same time. So a lot is left up to inference, but some things are quite clear. So
I love that. Yeah, because it's a historical retelling from Maesters, so they don't necessarily have. There wasn't anybody there in the room necessarily when things were happening, so it's just kind of a game of telephone in the book.
Yeah, and it does give the writers a lot to work with. But the I guess you could say the foundation of my gripe so far with House the Dragon is story. Characters are made certain ways for the story. Like your story and your characters serve each other. And when you mess up is probably a strong word for the internet, but when you take lots of creative liberties with characters' motivations, it changes the story because now things mean different things because they're coming from a different place. And so when you read and you're reading stuff that characters are reported to have said versus what we see on TV, it's just this is not the same character. They have the same name and they're in the same place and they end up doing the same big things, but the little things really count.
Okay, give examples.
I have them for later in the episode.
Okay. All right.
Okay, but first, I feel like we should start with a positive. So I think we share a favorite part of this episode, but please, what is your favorite part of this episode?
I actually have 2, but probably the most favorite was the Rhys Ifans argument with Aegon at the end. King Aegon. Holy cow. He was brilliant in this episode. His acting just shadowed everything happening.
That was absolutely my favorite part. Someone, a friend sent me a Twitter X post, and it was you can literally hear him saying, "I am surrounded by idiots," with his major turnaround eye roll thing that he did. It was so good. That was my hands down favorite part.
It was the epitome of exasperation of oh my God, I'm so out of here. I'm too old for this bullshit.
Exactly. No, that just like that stole the entire show for me. Like, and there were some like important moments that happened in this like episode. Like, I am fixing to trash on it, but I will trash on it with the unbiased opinion that there were some shining moments in this episode, and his monologue was one of them.
Yeah.
Another one, to a degree, was the duel of the Cargyle twins. What are your thoughts?
I thought it was great.
Okay.
Great choreography. They did it brilliantly. Man, the way I was hoping Massaria was gonna just F up his plan, I'm a little disappointed in that because she was on her way out, saw the other twin coming in, and the way I was like, do it, mess it up, and then we never saw her again. So I was like, okay.
She's not gone. She's not supposed to be gone. They're surprising me, but she's not supposed to be gone. She's supposed to.
No, but I was really hoping she would run back in and be like, alert, red alert.
well, fun fact, this is not in my sticky notes. This is just like, a Liza note. I'm like 90% certain that they actually find each other. Like they meet in a stairwell or something, or in a hallway.
Okay.
So I was just like, what? So when Massaria was walking past, I was like, you trying to tell me he wore his Kingsguard armor from the shore to the castle? Like, and then everybody looked at Kristen and they were like, you sent him alone?
But why would you wear your white cloak all the way through Dragonstone?
I honestly would have gone in like commoner's clothes and a hood and then put my armor on somewhere close to the castle. Like, you're really trying to, but whatever. That's a little side a snippet because there were more arguments between Rhaenyra and Daemon, and you said that you mentioned earlier you were a little disappointed in Daemon's character, and yeah. I will come to bat for his defense later. But tell me how you felt about their argument.
I thought their argument was great. Rhaenyra or Emma Darcy just stole the show completely. Like, to me, their acting was so good. Even like last episode, they only had the one line, right?
Gotcha, yeah,
and they still did really well with it. With the acting of the grief and all of that. But this one, man, the way she was able to emote everything in her full body, it wasn't just in their full body, excuse me. It wasn't just facial and it just wasn't just words. I will say it was the first time that I saw them return to child Rhaenyra. So I'm going to refer to it as a her because of the character for a second. It was the first time I saw her go back to child Rhaenyra. I saw child Rhaenyra come out of adult Rhaenyra. I really enjoyed that.
I agree. I did also kind of see like that slip back into Rhaenyra's history. She's like, I really thought this one thing of you, but I'm older now. I have a different opinion of you now. It's different than my opinion of him, but she has her own opinion of Daemon. So, but no, I thought that scene, like the choreography was good. And I like that. I think Matt Smith recently said in an interview, and I could be wrong, I'm honestly going off of memes that I've seen on the internet, but bear with me for my sources here. But I think that he said that Rhaenyra and Caraxes kind of are what grounds Daemon. And you can see that because everybody has a different way of expressing affection. And Daemon is like a physical touch person. And so like he will like kind of get up a little closer. I'm not talking about season 1 with the thing. I'm talking about season 2 with what just happened.
Yeah.
He gets up a little closer and is like, listen, I'm trying to convince you that I am on your side. You don't want to listen to me, but I have literally done everything to prove to you that I'm on your side. So I can see how it was just a really gripping moment for both the characters. You're just like, this is kind of like a pivotal relationship moment, I suppose.
Yeah, I could totally see both sides from Daemon's perspective and Rhaenyra's perspective, because for Daemon, he thinks he's doing everything right, no matter how twisted it is, right? And then Rhaenyra is like, you just weakened my claim to the throne. You showed me as vulnerable and emotional and reactive instead of proactive.
Right. And it's just, I'm team Daemon in that argument. I think he had points. And also, like, in my head, I'm just sitting there watching, like, technically, I'm fairly sure Daemon just proved how easily he could have killed all of you and just taken the crown, because Maegor did it before. Like, Maegor, everybody, right, and took the throne. And they were all afraid Daemon was going to be a second Maegor. I don't think that he is, but I'm just like, technically, if he wanted it, there are so many opportunities that he could have had it. And he basically says that. He's just like, I put the crown on your head. I've done all
Right.
this. I'm about to go raise an army in your name, not mine, your name. Because he could have challenged her claim. He's closer in blood, like he's the
Yep.
king's brother. But I think he made points. I can see how, based on where the show took Blood and Cheese, where Rhaenyra was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I am Team Daemon in that argument. But aside from the Rhaenyra and Daemon argument, we did meet two more people, which are like, I'm so happy that they're here. Okay, so last week we met Alan, because I have to remember Alan and Adam as he becomes Alan Oakenfist. So like we met Alan Oakenfist earlier, and now we have Adam of Hull. So Adam showed up, and it was so cool to see him because of the stuff that he gets to do later in the season. So I am really happy because we are leading up to the Dragon Seeds. Like Adam being here and Hugh Hammer being here last week, they're like dropping seeds for the Dragon Seeds. And we met another one. That was so unintentional.
But those seeds.
So we also have another one that showed up. So, you know, when we were watching the rat catchers, we're all strung from the castle walls. Somebody walks up and says, "Who are they?" And the lady's like, "Rat catchers." Well, what did they do? Nothing. So the guy, I'm like 80% sure that that is Ulf the White. And he is another dragon seed that Hugh Hammer and Ulf are kind of like a duo mentioned. They are mentioned close together often in Fire and Blood. So Hugh Hammer that we saw with his family earlier, and then the guy who was staring up at the rat catchers, keep your eyes on them. And obviously Adam, because I'm so excited because Adam is here. So
interesting. Okay, I'm interested to hear where their story arc goes, because the way they're just kind of sprinkling them in, of just being like, this is this guy's name and this is that guy's name, and then they're gonna just like explode later. Hopefully not, maybe.
I hope they don't explode. But they are like giving like, okay, these are new faces, they're new people, but you do have to pay attention to them. I like it. But there's like so much for us to talk about. So I think we'll go ahead and jump into our blood section. And I remember to put them in order this time. So let's go. Okay, so I have lots of thoughts on this episode. I'm really gonna like be patient, and I want to know what you thought. So, what are your thoughts on how Team Green handled little Jaehaerys's funeral?
So, this was the first time in a Game of Thrones episode ever that I looked away from the camera. I could not watch the scene of the body, right? Because of how callous and circus like they made the entire thing. The guy walking in front of the funeral procession going, "Look at the monstrosity of Rhaenyra Targaryen." Sir, like, how do you lay your head down at night?
That was so, and I appreciate the fact that they made it clear that what they were doing was grotesque and tragic and unfair. Like they make it really clear to the audience, because I've always heard that if you're going to do something horrendous, you need to make sure that the story knows it's horrendous, you know? And I think it was pretty clear. This, like, the story knew that this is a fucked up thing to do. And then Otto made a really strong point later, like they did that to Aegon's child, and then Aegon like ruined it with the rat catchers, which was actually my second question for you. That was like a faster segue than I expected, but rat catcher thoughts?
So I wasn't mad at Aegon for that. He's grieving, right? I really, really appreciate that we can kind of compare him to Joffrey, but he's not Joffrey. There are parallels in these stories, but they are not the same stories, which I find really fascinating, and I really appreciate that. I'm not mad at the rat catchers. I understand Otto's place of saying, you've just weakened yourself. You've exposed us all. I completely understand the maturity of that, but if you turn it around and understand that Aegon is a child, he is a child, mourning his child. I'm not mad at his reaction to that. I mean, yes, they are brothers and sons and fathers, and what he did is horrendous. I'm not saying it's not bad.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm not mad at it. I understand where he's coming from.
No, I do get where he's coming from. Like you said, he's in like a really like dark, fucked up place. And I
Mhm.
also I appreciate the fact that he's not Joffrey. Like he is kind of petulant, but he's not as dangerous as Joffrey was. And this was like a rash action. And Otto calls
Mhm.
him out on it. He's like, we did this horrible thing to get them all to like you, and now you have murdered their family members and hung them up from the and strung them up from the castle walls.
For
And
all to see. Yeah.
I guess this episode included both of those things, in the same episode on purpose because both of them are experiencing like a weakening of their claim. So maybe they
Mm.
juxtapose those on purpose to kind of give each team like a blow to their cause, I
Well,
suppose.
I also appreciate like the maturity tug of war that's happening, right? Because Otto has been the hand to a few kings, and he
Yeah.
sees how a lot of stuff plays out. And now Aegon is not as emotionally mature as an older gentleman like Otto. And then you have Kristen, we need to talk about.
That's my next question, actually. If you want to just get it off your chest, my next question is how do you feel about Aegon changing hands and the
Like,
argument?
I need to have a talk with Kristen. Like, we need to go into a quiet broom closet with a broom handle so I can just whack him a couple times. We need to talk, sir.
He The
What?
nerve,
What is wrong
the
with you?
audacity. I can feel it right now. This is our social media promo. The
What?
audacity of this human being. Like, he walked up to Sir Eric and was like, "You've soiled your white cloak. Yada, yada, yada. You have no honor. How dare you?"
Where were you when the prince was slain?
Where were you, Kristen? Where were you? No, the
What?
same friend that sends me all these like memes sent me a picture of how Allison left her child crying alone in a dark room after his kid got murdered to go with Kristen Cole. And I'm just like, the parenting choices that are happening right now.
What? Like his character? Okay. I paused the show last night. I interrupted the show. I interrupted the show. I paused the show last night and literally was like, I hate that guy.
He's awful.
I mean, like, Joffrey's an ass, right? Like, Tywin Lannister knows he's kind of a dick, but he has power and he knows, like, he knows what he's doing. Kristen,
If you're gonna be a dick, just be a dick. Like,
where
it just
did this come from? You were so cute. I had so many hopes for you in season 1. I still do. If I go back to season 1, I have so much hope for your character.
no.
He has destroyed all sense of humanity and being for me.
I'm so happy with their casting choice though. Like because you
Yeah.
have this like very conventionally attractive person. He's got these big eyes and this like completely sincere face. And so I appreciate the whole I don't want to call him a wolf in sheep's clothing because in my opinion a wolf is too good for him. We're going to call
Correct.
him snake in sheep's clothing. So I like that trope because it's like a caution sign. It's like not all that glitters is gold, Like there are some people who don't look like they're giant red flags that are giant red flags. And Sir Kristen is slowly like you can see the mental shift happening in his actor's acting. Like he fully believes that he's not being ridiculous right now. And this is not the right way to say it, but I don't have the psychology experience to unpack all these characters. But like he fully believes his bullshit. Like he's on his bullshit. And you're just like,
Oh my gosh, when he just walked up to Sir Eric and said like what you just said, like you soiled your white. Sir, you soiled your soul like 3 years ago. Can we just talk about that for a second?
and like I am in between a rock and a hard place with the Rhaenyra Kristen situation because that was a fucked up situation. He is now currently in the same situation, or at least similar, if not the same, similar, with Allison. And he's like, okay, so you chose after this thing that supposedly broke you, you
Right.
chose to continue this choice. Like now it is your choice. Like you are choosing to continue down this path. And you are sworn as the Kingsguard to protect the entire family, like the royal family. And so he technically walked up to Sir Eric and was like, you want to prove your honor? Go break it. And you're just like, Kristen, sit your ass down. Like,
I've seen
go
so
away.
many memes of like Rhaenyra talking to Kristen and he looks disgusted of like, you want me to be your whore? And then like the next scene is like Alicent and him laying in bed. Like, I am now your
I'm
whore.
sorry, Kristen. Like, was
What are
Alicent
you
like,
doing?
what did she have that Rhaenyra didn't? I don't want the answer. We're on TV. I don't want the answer.
No. Oh man. Yeah,
Okay.
he scratched it. He created itches last night. I don't want to say he scratched it. He
No.
wait a minute, that sounds even worse. I'm not
It's
saying
just
that he
we're
has
just gonna
crabs.
get back on track. We're gonna go down a Kristen Cole like dislike rabbit hole.
Let me go back to the funeral really quickly because
Okay,
I do
before we
think that
go.
we need to shine more light on that because obviously Helena,
Yes.
the actress who plays Helena, and I don't want to say her name because I'm not sure how to properly.
Understood, yeah.
She does everything so perfectly with the neurodivergency, and then Alicent, whatever. We're not going to talk about Alicent.
Her parenting is just whatever, but
Yeah, whatever. We're going to get into it later. Helena, the acting is brilliant. She's mourning. She's incredibly sad. When they showed her clinging to like the blanket, leaning up against the bedpost, I audibly was like, oh, oh
no.
no.
Like like oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Then when Aegon and Helena were walking up and down the stairs and past each other, it broke my heart when he didn't say anything and she literally would just acknowledge like, yep, that's just how it is. It's like, oh God, can somebody just hug her, please?
I know, and like it's just made it so stark that like their babies having babies, losing babies, and you're just like, your brain isn't even fully developed at the age that I think they are in the story. So like
Nope.
having to process a grief that tremendous with a partner that you're not even close to has to be like incredibly difficult. And I agree, like I too do not know how to properly pronounce Helena's actress's name,
Mhm.
but they just like they steal the show. Like every time Helena is on screen, it's just
Yes.
like you were just riveted. And she did like the overwhelm so well. And
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, like I can't imagine being in a crowd of all those people after that happened. And I literally sat there, I was like, so I understand that Team Black did this thing. But now you're like Team Green is making her look at it for like so much longer. It's like when Joffrey took Sansa to
Right.
the wall and he was like, look at Ned Stark's head. And
Yeah.
you're just like,
I love how innocent and simple and she was like, I don't want to. And Alicent was like, yeah, no, I don't either, but we have to. But Helena, like, there was so much weight in that one statement of, but I don't want to.
I
Big girl,
know.
please sit down. Just get hugged by somebody. Sit
I
down. You don't
know.
have to. Like, I just want to rub her head.
And as like you wanted Alicent to kind of like pull out the mom card and be like, okay, you don't have to. I'll do it. Like I'll do it. Because they could have spun something and been like, the queen is too aggrieved to be here, but the dowager queen is. And like, but no, Helena steals the show. My heart is like breaking for her, but like acting wise, like she deserves all of her flowers. Like just throw them at the screen.
Yes. And
Absolutely.
then like I mentioned at the very beginning of the question, but the little body and the way that it was a circus show, a circus act, I had to have my husband tell me when it was off the screen. I have two
Got
little
you.
boys. I didn't want
Yeah.
to see that.
No,
That was a
I
lot.
completely understand. Yeah. But speaking of acting, I know you had like a bunch of stuff you want to talk about regarding Emma Darcy, and that is in our fire section. So are you ready to get to the flames?
Yep.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, so speaking of Emma Darcy, they are a genius when it comes to acting. They are putting on an acting class this season. But what do you think of the difference in how she holds herself between season 1 and season 2 of the older Rhaenyra?
Right. Well, I think that Rhaenyra is still on really uncertain ground. And I think that her physical mannerisms portray that really well. Like most of what we have seen of her in season 2 is like very grief stricken and kind of not stepping into her role. Like she has, but she hasn't really stepped into her role. And honestly, like this might be a little controversial, but I am ready for the coin flip. Like I am ready for the heel turn. I am ready for the Targaryen to come out because I am honestly missing Cersei. And I know that Rhaenyra was not Cersei and she's not Dany, but to me, it genuinely feels like things are happening to Alicent and they're happening to Rhaenyra, and I am ready for these girls to get their hands on the reins and like start making some decisions because right now Rhaenyra has been a lot more reactive. With Mysaria, we have seen her make like a proactive choice, like, okay, I'm going to try and begin to bridge this gap because I see someone who could be useful to me. And, you know, like I said, Mysaria is the mistress of whispers for her team, so we're establishing that. But currently, I think that previously Rhaenyra was a little more naive. Some part of her thought it would still be easy. And I think right now she is just grappling with the like thunderous realization that this was never going to be easy, but situations have made it so much worse and more difficult. And you still have to keep fighting because now you stand on business. You got to pick your side and you've picked it. So you just have to shoulder this weight and move forward.
I do think you bring up a really good point because she has yet to fully embrace the role. I guess she understands her position, and yeah, she's made some commands and done. She's played the role, but I don't think she's fully, embraced what it is that she needs to do. Like it's still kind of sinking in that she needs to actually command and be queen and pull the Targaryen out because I'm with you. I'm excited to see that.
I want the coin flip so bad. And like this is talking you're currently speaking to someone who was like, no, Dany, why? But now I'm just like, yes, Dany, yes.
Yeah. So let's burn it all.
So speaking of like that type of like heel turn coin flip thing, obviously I do not condone violence. But specifically in fantasy fiction, specifically in Westeros, this is war. Like you are going to have to get your hands dirty at some point. This Alicent Otto, we can still make peace. This Rhaenyra, I don't want to shed blood. Like it's already happened. Like you are going. Like if you leave your hand off the wheel, metaphorically, you have to have your hand on the tiller to be in control of the boat. So like you're going to need to have your hands in the dirt. And no one is willing to get their hands dirty, but the people they're blaming for everything, Daemon. And it's like someone's going to have to do it at some point. Otherwise, this is not going anywhere. We're just going to sit here and like yell at each other across Dragonstone and King's Landing and nothing will get done.
I just want to say, because I forgot to say this last season, I think, and last episode, I want to put it out there that my favorite people in this entire story is Rhaenys and Corlys. Rhaenys is my favorite character. And so when they were in Dragonstone, when they were dealing with the aftermath of the death of Prince Jaehaerys, right? Jaehaerys?
They're in Dragonstone. Which are you talking about? Rhaenyra's father or the kid?
Aegon's son who just died, the little boy.
Jaehaerys.
Okay.
Jaehaerys.
So when they were in the war room, right, dealing with the aftermath of Prince Jaehaerys' death, and one of the council members is talking pretty freely to Rhaenyra, and Rhaenys is like, "You better watch yourself.
Mind yourself.
Yes, get him."
She has a dragon, and she is not afraid to eat you with it.
Yeah. And then last season, when Daemon was like, "We have, Caraxes and Syrax and Melees," and Rhaenys was like, "Excuse me, you have who? Like, I did not say you had my dragon. I didn't even say I was on your side." Like I stand Rhaenys.
No, you can't push Rhaenys in any direction. And but like I so appreciate the dynamic that she and Daemon have. because like
so
they are
fun.
both powerful personalities and neither one of them moves. And so they're just like circling each other like mentally this whole time. And the smirk that I made earlier was because all I could think about was that legendary side eye across the table. The I know, you know, I know face. And I was just like, no, their dynamic is like, and so I think family tree wise, it's Jaehaerys. Balin is Daemon and Viserys' dad, and then Aemon, without a D, was Rhaenys' dad. And so like that's kind of where they are on the family tree, and I'm assuming they are probably quite familiar with each other. So because they have spent so much time, because they've all been alive longer than most of the people on each team. So
cousins. Well, random side note, my husband and I were trying to figure out the relationship between Rhaenyra and Baela during that conversation, and so we were like stepmother, niece, and aunt and cousin? Question mark.
In the words of Olenna Tyrell, I can appreciate things get confusing in your family. I can appreciate these things get confusing in your family. I have thoughts, speaking of which, thank you for bringing it up. I'm going to keep this brief. I have thoughts because Rhaenyra did not send Jace out flying, but she was totally okay sending Baela out flying. I was like, I'm sorry, is Baela expendable? Like,
right.
Baela is like so badass, and I'm gonna need you to keep her safe. And that just like the subtext, I guess, of that just really irked me. I was like, oh, so your kid can't go, but his kid with somebody else can. Like, where is your stepmama instinct? Like, bring in the parenting. Don't send her out there.
I have a note on that. The Baela and Moondancer conversation that Rhaenyra and Baela had, when she said stay high and keep your distance, I loved that because it was just a normal statement in their realm, in their world. Speaking of dragon, like stay high and keep your distance. Like, oh, it was so cool.
It's so cool. It's just regular marching orders because like dragons are so normal, and to us we're just like dragons. To them they're just like dragons. But no, I too, like it was the normalcy somehow makes it cooler in my opinion. Like it's just so
a normal conversation.
It's just so ingrained in their way of life.
That's perfect. That was a perfect way of saying it. Which leads me into my next question. We had a vision of I was going to say dinosaur, a vision of a dragon. Who do you think that was? Because it was not clarified who it was.
Okay, so I actually checked out this question earlier, and I realized that I have no idea who that dragon is. I have 3 guesses.
Okay.
I have no actual idea, but I'm explaining my guesses. Obviously, our most obvious is Moondancer, because the alleged relationship between Adam of Hull, who becomes Adam Valerian, and Corlys makes sense that they would draw a parallel between Corlys and Baela and Moondancer. So that makes sense. Obviously, it was also, I think it was the most recent dragon that was mentioned, so tying the scenes in together would make sense.
Sure.
My second guess is Silverwing, because we just saw Ulf the White, and I'm like pretty sure that Silverwing becomes his dragon because Hugh Hammer flies Vermithor, who was Jaehaerys' dragon, and Ulf the White flies Silverwing, which was Alysanne's dragon, and Jaehaerys and Alysanne were king and queen before Viserys. So maybe because they introduced the rider. I have 4 guesses now. Maybe because they introduced him earlier, they also mentioned Silverwing, but it just popped into my head that it also makes plenty of sense for it to be Sea Smoke because we're in the spoiler section now. I can say this, right? It makes a lot of sense for it to be Sea Smoke because Sea Smoke has no rider right now. Maybe Sea Smoke is chilling, and Adam is Sea Smoke's rider later. So now on to the most lore interesting one, in my opinion. There is a dragon called Grey Ghost. And that has story significance because I don't know if this is the right literary device, but a red herring is where you bring attention to something that's going to matter later, or is the Chekhov's gun? Which one is it? Do we know?
No.
I think it's Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's gun, I think. I think so. Like you bring attention to something that's going to have a lot of significance in the story later. And Grey Ghost is a tiny piece in a much larger puzzle, but he is like a notification of something that happened later in the story. And I think it would be really neat if we acknowledge the fact that Grey Ghost exists early because it prevents the whole shoehorning feeling. And he's a shy dragon and he just kind of chills. That's why his name is Grey Ghost. He just be living his best life, fishing, eating fish, and ignoring people and stuff. So I hope that we see him earlier than we need him because, like I said, it will avoid that shoehorn feeling. So I think it could be any of those. It did look silver, and Silver Wing, Sea Smoke, and Grey Ghost are all of a grayish color. So those are my submissions to the pot.
Awesome. And then my final question for you, we've mentioned it a little bit, but we did see a massive difference in parenting in one of the small scenes between two mothers, meaning Alicent and Helena, right?
Right.
They are two mothers. We saw a massive difference in parenting. Do you think Alicent's lack of nurture led to the emotional disparage that Helena now lives with?
Yes, I do think, and I was just talking with someone about this. So we do need to I am not a psychologist and I don't really have the criteria to unpack this. I'm just going to go based on my general understanding that a person gets from living a regular life, right? So Alicent didn't want to get married to Viserys. She didn't want to have babies and she didn't want to be queen. So I can imagine that you do have some resentment toward both your partner and your children if you didn't want to be in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Alicent ever really tried to overcome that subconscious resentment because she treats all of her children the same. Like Aegon gets slapped around and ignored and talked down to, which is just going to fuel his desire to prove himself.
Mm-hmm.
Aemond, that scene happened.
Mm-hmm.
And Helena I understand that Alicent and Helena have a difficult time communicating because of what was understood about neurodivergence at that time.
Right.
But Alicent also doesn't really try to bridge that gap. And I do think that the lack of a positive mother-daughter relationship, I do think it accentuates the feelings of isolation and lack of nurture that somebody would have, especially when they're grieving, because when they're grieving, you're going to want more comfort, more nurture, to feel a safe place or that someone understands. So I do think that Alicent did contribute to the way each of her children behaves in the same way, in all fairness, in the same way that Rhaenyra and moms everywhere contribute to the way that their kids are. But there is a direct correlation between how you parent and, how your kid turns out. So
Alicent's too busy getting herself nurtured. So. Had to put that in there.
Michelle. She left him to sob honestly, I was kind of relieved to see him cry because I don't think Joffrey ever actually cried.
Oh no, but I don't think Joffrey is capable of crying.
Exactly. And so I'm just if you're crying, at least you feel something. At least there's some level of you understand what's happening and you feel the way someone is supposed to feel during that,
Okay, that's
so
a good
I was
point.
honestly a little relieved. I was I don't think Aegon is sociopath, psychopath level.
Yeah, he's just missing a few pieces in his brain. I have two super random notes that don't really go along with anything. One of them is going to be Aemond. I know we're going to get into it a little bit later, but Aemond's eye, that weird scene. Aemond's eye didn't shut, the sapphire eye. I thought that was really well done.
That was a neat little I don't want to say a note because it's visual, but it was a neat
attention
note.
to detail.
Yeah.
And then Rhaenys and Corlys were in bed, right? And the way, just what we were talking about with Rhaenyra and Baela, just kind of throwing out dragon terms and dragon things. Rhaenys was in bed and threw out Melee's name, but she said it in an accent. I don't know if you caught that.
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
But it was just she was talking normal, and then it's Melee's or however she said it, but it was definitely a High Valyrian accent, and I was like, that was cool.
See, there's so much attention to detail in Game of Thrones and House of Dragon. And I hope that it'll be the same attention to detail in Dunk and Egg that they're working on right now, and the Conquest when we get it. But no, I do appreciate the attention to detail for sure. I did have a note about Aemond. I am not going to discuss the scene. I'm just going to say that the emotional implications of the scene will pay off a little when he gets to Harrenhal. So
interesting.
I am of the opinion that they did not need this scene because of a character that they're going to introduce in Harrenhal. So I am of that opinion. And I think that, people who have read the books will kind of get what I'm going at. this scene and that side quest storyline
Like,
will mean the same thing. So
yeah,
that's all I'm
because
gonna say.
he now got his ego stroked thinking that Daemon is scared of him.
Yes, I'm like, that's not how I would have interpreted that. I would
At
have
all, no.
interpreted it as there's a price on my head because I did something stupid. Not that I was formidable. Like I would have questioned my life choices. Which
Right.
maybe that's what he was doing.
I don't know.
Moving on.
Yeah.
We're just gonna move right into our Dragon Dream section. We're gonna call it a day on all that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have a hymn for today's Dragon Dream section. I have something called canon corrections.
I'm here for it. I'm ready.
I'm gonna keep it so brief. I just want everyone to know that Daemon is getting blamed for a lot of stuff. And yes, no one should kill a child. Well, we're just gonna put that out there on the table. In addition to that important fact, Daemon also made a lot of important choices for this war, and I'm not and I do have sticky notes. For the record, let's begin with the fact that Daemon was right when he said he put the crown on Rhaenyra's head.
Correct.
Point 1 in Daemon's favor. We're gonna keep score. Okay. Point 2 in Daemon's favor. There's a part in Fire and Blood. In my copy, it's on page 406. And Rhaenyra is basically saying that she doesn't want to fly her dragons straight to King's Landing because while they have more dragons, she doesn't want to lose them and her kids. Daemon agrees with her at this council meeting in front of everyone. He supports her. And he basically says it's no easy thing for a man to be a dragon slayer, but dragons can kill dragons. And they have. There are other ways to use them and better ways. So he agrees with her and supports her decisions canonically. Moving on. But that's point 2 for Daemon. Point 3 for Daemon. It was his idea to take Harrenhal because, like we said, Harrenhal is in a fantastic position. You need to rally all the large houses to your cause, and Harrenhal can support all of them. In the show, they give it to Aemond. I have thoughts. However, point 3 for Daemon, it was his idea to go to Harrenhal, and that's on page 407, where he says, we need a place where they can gather a toehold large enough to house a sizable host, Harrenhal. Yes, there are sentences in between, but I'm picking the most important parts. Next is Blood and Cheese. Point 4 for Daemon is really more about the omission of information in Fire and Blood. So in the show, after Daemon makes said decision about Blood and Cheese and whom they can kill, in the show, we see a lot of blowback, right? Yeah. But in the book, he's already at Harrenhal, so he and Rhaenyra can't have this discussion unless they both flew their dragons to go see each other, which is a possibility. I'm not writing it off. But he writes from Harrenhal, and he says, an eye for an eye, a son for a son, Lucerys shall be avenged. And then he goes on about it, which is what made me believe, I am genuinely convinced that it was not supposed to be Aemond. I think that they were going across the board. The queen's son, the king's son. Mm-hmm. And most interestingly, in my humble opinion, to my knowledge and my text that I have skimmed through in preparation for this episode, I don't think that there's blowback, which always made me think Rhaenyra was in on it. Like I said, I am waiting for the coin flip. And I do agree that, nobody wants to be called kinslayer amongst the realm. However, I do think Rhaenyra was in on it because, to my knowledge, and I'm double checking as we go, I do not see a mention about Rhaenyra being upset about it. That chapter stops with Aegon's reaction to it. And it starts again with stuff going on in the Riverlands. So that's kind of close to Harrenhal. And we really do pick up next really close to Rook's Rest. So the whole Rhaenyra Daemon, I'm upset with you situation, textually, I don't think happens. And if I'm wrong in the comments, please feel free to let me know because I really do like to know everything about this franchise. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I'm right, I'm right. We have to deal with it.
Right. Too many creative liberties. So I'm thinking that Daemon was flying to Harrenhal, right? When they just show Caraxes' bullet.
Yeah,
he's flying to Harrenhal.
Yeah. He is leaving to Harrenhal, but he, timeline, as far as I know, should have already been there, which is why I really thought we were going to get Harrenhal in this episode, but I was wrong because they were doing stuff differently. Like they did the Cargyle twins. I think they moved things in order a little bit, which is okay. It's okay.
Yeah, we got my opinion of the Cargyle twin battle. What did you think of it? Oh no.
Okay. I think that they did keep certain aspects. The twins do fight each other, and they did pick the best out of the two options. So there's two options in Fire and Blood about what happened. One of them says they curse each other for oath breakers and kill each other on the spot in like 5 minutes, right?
Okay.
Or less. The other one says they profess their undying love for each other, and it takes them forever to land mortal wounds.
Okay.
But so they kind of like made it faster, but kept the undying love part. But in the book, they kill each other. So it's not like one of them is better than the other. Like
Right.
they're equally as good as the other. And I mean, maybe possibly. I don't know. Like, I just feel like as your brother, it would be hard to fight you, but they're both really dedicated to their sides. So
Right.
I like the book version. This version, while, you know, I think it was cinematic. They
Very.
find each other, so I don't think Massaria is involved in the book. They find each other and they kill each other, and I do like the fact they pick the professing your love part because they're twins. He said they're one soul and two bodies. So there were parts I liked, there were parts I didn't, and that's where I'm gonna stay.
Honestly, I want to say that the battle between the Cargyle twins was what we wanted between the Hound and the Mountain.
You know, there was a specific part in this episode where I was like, they need the Hound. I am like missing our characters who are really willing to get their hands dirty. Like I am missing the grit and determination and ruthlessness of Game of Thrones. And that could be a personal preference because I do really enjoy high fantasy and like morally gray characters. But in order to have morally gray, you have to have a spectrum of people. Like there has to be the good people, bad people, morally gray people. And in my opinion on this show, no one's willing to commit to this end of the spectrum. And I'm just like, get in there.
Everybody's on the same side, on their side. I don't want to get anybody hurt. I don't want to shed blood. I don't want to be the reason. I don't blah, blah, blah. Everybody's kind of on that side.
It's literally titled Fire and Blood. It's the literal title.
Let's get some blood. Let's get it.
And I'm all here for the politics. I'm here for it. But like, I miss Cersei. I miss when character motivation and like psychological reveals added danger to their characters and grit to their characters and even more steam behind their characters. Like backstories are meant to provide steam for the steam engine characters just go, you know? And in my opinion, the backstories that we're getting in House of the Dragon are like taking the steam away. I'm just like, you could have been this terrifying character.
Yep.
But now I've seen too much and I can't forget it.
We need to ramp up Daemon's questionability.
I would just like, I do agree he's a very morally gray character. I 100%, I agree he's a morally gray character. And I'm okay if they really mess with his credibility, like not his credibility. I'm okay if they mess with his moral questionability.
Sure.
But I'm honestly just happy someone here is willing to do something. Like, at least someone's doing something.
That can lead us into what do you think is going to happen next episode then?
Okay, so I really expect to see Harrenhal. I did watch the next episode preview. I did watch it. And it looks like Daemon's in Harrenhal. And I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, Harrenhal falls pretty easy because who's sitting there and staring Caraxes in the face and saying, no, I'm going to fight. No, you're not. You're just going to hand over that castle and call it a day. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that Harrenhal falls easily, which is a huge blow to Aegon because, like I said, that is like a really pivotal spot in Game of Thrones and like the map of Westeros, right? And then after that, I'm not going to get into like house names and stuff because I know that can be confusing, but Aegon suffers other losses. And so he's just like, it's like left and right, like blows coming from all angles. It's horrible. But for him, not so bad for us because we're winning, right? But I do not know if Rook's Rest is next episode or episode 4. There's a strong possibility we'll end on Rook's Rest. So I'm going to, just in case, Rook's Rest is next episode. I'm going to give a really brief, kind of vague thing about what happens in Rook's Rest. So, everyone, if you're here and you don't want to ruin one of the biggest episodes in the show with spoilers, please come back to our next episode because we're going to be done with this one in like 10 minutes. So, we'll see you next episode. But if you want to know all the royalty and fire that's about to happen, once again, we have you covered. Rook's Rest.
I'm so interested. I want to hear this.
Okay. I was actually about to ask you if you wanted to like not hear this.
No, I do because we've been bringing it up several times now, and we talked about it in our trailer hype video and in our articles. And so I'm like, something. I was just gonna say something huge has to happen here, and I just want to know. I'm curious.
Okay, all right. I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid. There's a reason that Rhaenys is getting so much screen time. That good old-fashioned rule of give them screen time right before is occurring.
No,
right now. Yes.
No.
Yes. If they do it right, like they might juke me and switch up on me as they have been doing. But
okay, I just want to say that I did not plan that when I was like, Rhaenys is amazing. I did not. I didn't know.
I'm not smiling because it's funny. I'm smiling because it's horrible. Like. It's just like
no.
So I just want you to know that if you had any reservations about Team Green, but you like Rhaenys, prepare to be on Team Black for like ever. Because this is what happens. Okay, so Kristen Cole is at Rook's Rest, and the person who runs Rook's Rest has enough time to send a raven to Rhaenyra asking for help. So they send Meleys and Rhaenys, and Rhaenys flies in. But Kristen Cole's crispy little butt set a trap. And when Meleys arrives, there was, I'm assuming, previously not a mention of dragons at Rook's Rest because both Vhagar and Sunfire appear. So Kristen Cole set a trap, and then the teeth, like, it literally says the teeth closed around her. So, but Rhaenys has like this incredibly badass moment, in my opinion, because she makes no attempt to run. She's just like, yeah, we're doing this right now. And she just like, it literally says, I will read it for you.
I just got chills.
I know, it's just so amazing. Okay, it says, Princess Rhaenys made no attempt to flee. With a glad cry and a crack of her whip, she turned Meleys toward the foe. She's just so badass.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It's gonna be amazing and sad and horrible and a spectacle.
Does she take anyone? Like, does she cause damage? Does she take anyone or anything with her?
So I think that they say against Sunfire, she really would have had a chance because Sunfire is not nearly the size of Meleys. Meleys is older.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, if it had just been Sunfire, I think she would have won hands down. But I'm in like a foreshadowing kind of moment, the way that stuff will like foreshadow something important later in a really tiny way, but in a big way. Vhagar and Aemond go like way up high, kind of the way that Aegon took Harrenhal to start with, and then just like slams into Meleys and Sunfire while they're together, and then Vhagar just like runs into them at full Vhagar speed from the top down. So that happens. But I don't want to say if it's any consolation because that's not fair because nobody should experience such bodily harm. But Side Green is not unscathed.
So Kristen just keeps doing his spiral into probably one of the most hated characters in Game of Thrones history, huh?
Yeah, he really might because I'm pretty sure no matter what side you're on, I'm fairly certain everybody loves Rhaenys.
I think I'm just going to create a shirt that says, I hate Kristen Cole.
You're going to make so much money. You're going to see people walking around Walmart in your shirt and be like, me too. It's going to be the new Vala de Hyros.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's and if we don't get Rook's Rest, then maybe we'll start the Dragon Seeds. But we have to get Rook's Rest first because when you're down a dragon rider, that's kind of the reason that they go on the hunt for the Dragon Seeds because you're down you're down Luke and Arax. I'm not sure how much help they would have been to start with, but you're still down a dragon and a rider.
Yeah.
And Rhaenys and Meleys. So like Meleys is huge. So
yeah.
No, everybody that I know is like really attached to Rhaenys. And they mention like, I gotta be honest, I was a little annoyed that they keep mentioning that the crown passed over her because I feel like we've talked about it enough.
Yeah.
But her moniker is the queen who never was. And I think when she has her big moment where she's like, I'm not afraid, I'm going in. Like, I think that moniker really comes into play, like the queen who never was. And I think that, like, in a good way, like, I feel like it's like a powerful thing, you know? So maybe that's why they keep bringing it up.
I feel better.
I hate to leave the episode on that note, but like...
No, but I feel better because we had a lot of thoughts coming into this. We had a lot of thoughts about last episode.
I know. No, you said the funniest thing earlier, but I am like prepared to not... I feel like this episode had me like rage laughing a lot, and I feel like next episode is gonna have me like broken, because I was like, they're gonna have to recover some, in my opinion. Like, directorially, some of the dialogue on this episode was off. There were lots of unnecessary scenes that are like, the point of each scene is taken care of later, and I'm just like, you're gonna have to recover for me in the next episode. But if they recover with Rook's Rest and it's done well...
All right, y'all. On that note, we'll be back every week on CouchSoup.com during season 2 to recap the latest episode of House of the Dragon.
Be sure to hit that like button, ring the bell, and let us know in the comments what you'd like us to dive in next if you have any specific lore questions or requests. And Team Green, sound off on how I did your boy.
Right.
Torched him, and I'm just like, why? No.
I don't know.
As always, feel free to make your case in the comments.
Always.
And I mean, you're about to have some big stuff come up, Team Green. So like, talk to us. Let us know where you're at. I have seen comments on some of our previous episodes. And I enjoy hearing, like, we enjoy hearing from all of you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we will see you next week with all the fire and soup.